What mysteries from the early days of the internet are still unsolved? Story 1. I was in a Yahoo chat RPG room like 0001 with my best friend across the street. Neither of us had a webcam at the time, and we were both on dial-up. We never let on to the others in the room that we were friends IRL and would argue with each other about stupid stuff we wanted to do. Well, some random person pulled my buddy and I into a private chat and sent a pic of my buddy's bedroom to us and typed out both of our full names. We freaked out because it was a blurry shot from overhead and there was legit no way for that to have been just taken. We freaked out, both logged off, and he unplugged his desktop from the phone line to make sure it had zero internet. Scared us for a while. We searched his room for a hidden camera tons of times and never found anything. We think it was his older brother or one of his friends messing with us, but he still denies it all these years later, and both of our parents were not tech smart back then, so still a huge mystery to us. Story 2. The author of My Immortal. A few people have come forward, but were later revealed to be lying. The true author of that masterpiece, as well as whether or not it was intentionally satire, is still unknown. Damn, anyone remember the fiasco of that one person who almost got away with claiming they were the author? Spun this whole bullcrap story they were a person of color. I believe they claimed to be Native American, in abusive foster care, and wrote it as a joke. Got huge publicity for their current work for it. And to be honest, they would have gotten away with it if they hadn't faked their race lamau. A bunch of people came forward who knew them in real life and were like, so they're white? And grew up in upper middle class suburbia? LMAO, the drama I loved. Story 3. I've been online since 1993, you whippersnapper. The biggest mystery is how social media replaced everything. The early internet was like 30% web and 70% Wild West text-based bullcrap. MUDs and OMUs, BBS gateways, USENet, IRC, like 18 million messengers, and ways to play with your friends online. Free web hosts everywhere since most people did their blogs by writing the actual damn HTML by hand. Digital cameras were rare, expensive, and of absolute crap quality. You didn't know what anyone looked like, you didn't know anyone's real name. It was awesome. By the early 2000s, it was like 90% web, but even then we had different places for different folks. The emos and goths stuck to LiveJournal. The artsy weirdos lived on DeviantArt. There were a handful of up-and-coming sites where you could post photos you took as digital cameras started being not complete crap. There were forums for everything and they were lit as hell. Rest in peace, something awful. Even online shopping was diverse. The big man on campus was eBay, but there were literally dozens of classified websites where you could sell crap. Somehow Craigslist still exists from that era and hasn't visibly changed at all. Then there was Friendster, then MySpace, then Facebook. AOL died. GeoCities died. LiveJournal still lives, but it's a shadow of its former self. Tumblr tried to live, but couldn't survive without not safe for work stuff. The other sites exist on the fringes of the internet, but no one goes there anymore. The internet is one giant ghost town with an urban core of like 6 megatowers where everyone is. The mystery is how all the online anarchists who swore the internet was for everyone let this happen. Also how the internet still works, but I know way too much about BGP and DNS to be convinced it actually. Story 4. Whatever happened to the girl from Tilly's diary? Tilly Jacobson was a teen girl from the LA area with an online diary on Bolt.com who wrote about school, her family, and the guy next door that she was secretly dating. She suddenly stopped posting one day, and the only thing I could find was a forum thread that suggested it might have been fake all along. Every so often, I still try to look her up, but have had no luck. It's been 20 years and I still think about her regularly. Story 5. The most mysterious song on the internet. 80s new wave band makes a song that airs once on a German radio station and is recorded on cassette by a teenager. Years later, the guy with the cassette and his sister take to the internet to find the artist of the song. To this day, the question remains unanswered. No artist with sufficient proof has ever come forward. It's actually quite a good song, if a little haunting. There's a Reddit page for people actively searching for the mystery band. Story 6. This one is a little more personal, but I have always wondered what happened to an online friend that I had from the Open Diary site. She was a prolific poster, a teenage girl from Australia who would openly discuss her troubles with anorexia. I stumbled upon her diary by random one day and followed her for a couple of years. She was living with her mom and stepdad and was frequently in and out of hospitals and rehab centers to deal with her eating disorder. She would post some pretty dark stuff. Then she would disappear for a couple of weeks, then come back saying something like that she had shared her previous posts with her therapist and they were working through it. She also posted her weights and what she ate every day, and it was obvious that she wasn't doing well. Even though I didn't struggle with an eating disorder myself, something touched me about her story and I was invested in her well-being. At some point she stopped posting, and I never heard from her again. I always wondered what had happened to her. Had she just tired of writing in the diary? Had she changed her username? Was it just a story all along? Or had she had another one of her hospital visits and never came home? Story 7. John Titor. He was someone who claimed to be a time traveler from the year 2036. He made a lot of claims like the US would enter a civil war after the 2004 election that would result in America splintering into 5 nation-states that would result in World War III that ended in 2015. He said that he was initially sent to 1975 to get an IBM 5100 computer to help debug legacy computers, and I guess made a detour to 2001 to warn everyone. What made him so famous at the time that if he was a troll, he put a hell of a lot of effort into it. His posts included screenshots of his time machine, and his stories were really articulate and detailed. Like he described in earnest detail over being involved in militia-like activities after the fall of the US government. To this day, we don't know his exact story. Obviously, it was a troll, unless the timeline splintered because of his posts. But nobody has admitted as being responsible for his posts. He was really goddamned popular in online debates if you were on any message board or forum in the early 2000s. Story 8. I've been online regularly since 1995. In 2003, a few months after the US invasion of Iraq, a blog was started by an anonymous young Iraqi woman who went by Riverbed. The blog was called Baghdad Burning, and she chronicled her and her family's experience with the occupation until 2007. She posted one last update in 2013, but hasn't added anything since. Her identity remains a mystery, and I often wonder what her life is like now, or if she writes anymore. Back then, it seemed amazing to get that inside perspective from a regular person living through that war. I didn't feel like I could find such a perspective anywhere else, and she certainly enriched my understanding of those events. Story 9. I am old and lucky. I was one of the first 100 residential accounts online in North Carolina directly with the newly formed first ISP in NC, Interpath. Up until that time, all internet access was either through a university or military, or secondary access through the likes of CompuServe or AOL. I say new, but up until then Interpath only sold access to schools. The really funny aspect of it is that despite me being one of the first, it was 2012 before I finally got true wired broadband. Up until 2012, my only options were a short-lived Wi-Fi ISP and various homemade contraptions to bring in 3G internet from miles away. ISDN was prohibitively expensive, and I was too rural for cable or DSL. Story 10. There was a Canadian social media site called Nexopia. It was like the crafty version of MySpace. I had a ton of friends there from all over Canada, whom I talked to a lot. One day, the site disappeared. It was gone. Everyone I talked to, they all ghosted me. I don't know if it was because they couldn't find me either, or they were setting me up the complex way. I want to believe that they were just as lost and confused as I was, because finding other socials wasn't as easy as searching their name on Google, and not everyone was on every social media. Last year, I had found drawings that I had made of them at the time, as requested by them. They had all their first and last names on the paper, but not a single one directed me to any one of those names. I can't figure out why or what happened. Anyone I've talked to about Nexopia has no clue what I'm talking about. Story 11. I went online in '94 and the internet was already old. The internet had pictures. For goodness sakes, when I got dial-up. That was rad. It wasn't that much before that the internet was pretty much just all text. I'm still baffled as to how America Online couldn't create a complete stranglehold monopoly on the internet. They had the complete package: ISP, browser, news homepage, search engine, saturation, marketing. I'm guessing they weren't anti-competitive enough. Maybe they should have bought GeoCities and grown it out to be the premium hosting a website dev service. Maybe there could have been a way for them to combat and win against Comcast and Time Warner through effective lobbying. Maybe they never capitalized on their widespread user base to collect or package or sell data and push advertising before it became cool. Story 12. I remember having a lot of strange encounters with people in those chat rooms back in the day. One person I can think of off the top of my head was this girl I talked to for about 6 hours. We really hit it off, and the next day never heard nothing from her. Nothing ever again. You can say that maybe she just wasn't interested in me, but I always thought it was strange. Like a gut feeling, you know. Anyway, it only occurred to me about 2 years ago, while I was laying in my bed thinking about it one night, that this girl may have actually been a guy. I'm 35 now, so this was 20 years ago. Story 13. So where did that remote shutdown virus come from? When we had it, it had showed the remote shutdown window counting down from 60 and then restart a few minutes after we connected to the internet. We never used the internet for anything but checking emails. And to look up something from time to time, otherwise we'd have a subscription, so surely not explicit websites. We'd only exchange emails between family and friends, and never registered for any games or anything. Also never downloaded anything. And we didn't even have Flash, so we didn't load those digital wish cards. Or where could that virus come from? The search engine itself or some website? Story 14. Some YouTube clips from the early 2000s. Not really a mystery, but terrified me. It was about an Italian ferry that sank near the coast just after departing. It entirely caught on fire. First clip was shot from a news helicopter circling the wrecked and burnt ship. They zoom in on a single dead body on deck. Just one body. It terrified me for some reason. Then they immediately showed a shot of the close-up black skeleton, whole body stiff, no hair, no skin. The second clip was taped by firefighters who had entered the ferry. Everything was of course torn apart and burnt as they showed the lobby. The camera then slowly drifts to the floor. Everything is full of ashes and wooden planks and destroyed furniture. The camera zooms in on a black lump on the floor caught between boards. It took me a while to figure it out, but after I saw a set of bony, carbonized fingers sticking out next to it, I kind of figured out it was a corpse. I'm not taking any risks, and looking it up again, I am more than scared. Story 15. The M Cave Mystery. A guy named Kenny Veach that stumbled upon a mysterious cave in the desert, only to disappear after a second trek to the location to find it again and record. I was listening to this radio lab one time, and these guys went to a cliff face in the Arizona area, I think. Anyway, they found this really old piece of pottery from a tribe. They decided to leave it there to preserve it and leave it be. Anyway, they had a hankering to go find it again the next day or a few days later, and when they did, a rock slide happened during the time they were away and covered that whole area. So maybe something like that could have happened? Story 16. Yeah, Beebis. It's a video game that seemingly never existed or was never released, and yet evidence for its existence and release can be found. Something he doesn't mention that I actually found out by doing some research. Some of the other games on these lists also weren't released, or released under different titles. Yet as he points out, this is a list for wrestling games, meaning the prices are based on essentially pawning them. But these games must have existed in some form, even if they weren't released in the United States. Story 17, Cicada 3301 is a nickname given to an organization that on 3 occasions has posted a set of puzzles to recruit codebreakers from the public. The first internet puzzle started on January 4th, 2012 on 4chan and ran for approximately 1 month. A second round began 1 year later on January 4th, 2013, and a third round following the confirmation of a fresh clue posted on Twitter on January 4th, 2014. The stated intent was to recruit intelligent individuals by presenting a series of puzzles which were to be solved. No new puzzles were published on January 4th, 2015. However, a new clue was posted on Twitter on January 5th, 2016. In April 2017, a verified PGP signed message was found: "Beware false paths. Always verify PGP signature." That message explicitly denies the validity of any unsigned puzzle. As recently as April 2017, the puzzles focused heavily on data security, cryptography, steganography, internet anonymity, and surveillance. Story 18. How about the fact that nobody can conclusively identify Satoshi, the creator of this massive sector that has billions of dollars flowing through it? Oh yeah, just some guy made this breakthrough technology that everyone deems valuable. Kinda crazy. Story 19. What about when Siri was first really gaining popularity and people were asking about dates and holidays, only to discover that one date in particular said something really eerie? I can't remember the exact date, but Siri would respond month, day, year, followed by opening gates of Hades. I tried it myself, and it worked. If you asked her about a particular date a few months after that, she'd say, closing gates of Hades. I never got closure on what it was or what it meant, if it was some sort of religious thing or what. I'm Christian and had absolutely no clue why these dates would have anything to do with the gates of Hades. Story 20. I don't remember the name of the story, so I'll just put it. This guy got a Wii U for Christmas and was super ducking happy about it. He tried to turn it on and it didn't work, so he took it apart and there was a brown or black sack. The guy cut open the sack and out crawled a couple dead spiders. They had no skin on them as they were alive in the sack and ate each other to live. Doesn't really make any sense. Sounds made up by whoever initially wrote it. I can't see somebody having something brand new that doesn't work, and instead of just returning it for a replacement, they open it up, ruining the warranty. Spiders have exoskeletons, and if you remove that, you would be left with a non-living blob of guts and hemolymph that definitely couldn't move. Spiders also wouldn't be able to eat off just the skin. They can't chew, and instead when they bite their prey, they inject venom which contains digestive enzymes, so they can basically drink their kill as the proteins break down. 321. Recently, I read about the guy that got lost in the Paris catacombs and had dropped his video camera which featured the video of him panicking. I'm afraid to watch the footage. But of course, people are saying it's fake. Seems like everything is fake nowadays. It's a great unsolved mystery about who that guy was and what exactly caused him to drop the camera and disappear into the dark. Let people be thrilled with the damn mystery, unless it's glaringly obvious that it was staged. Story 22. The Stairs in the Woods. Where is this and what is up with them? I mean, the stories about the national or state park guards finding random staircases built in the forests are real. not as much as the story probably implies. But they do exist, and the plausible explanation is that some of the structures that were built with stairs were either old military bases from the Cold War or a bunch of hippies building housing without permission. Don't get close to them. Derelict structures that are being slowly taken back by nature are dangerous and can collapse at any moment. It's a hazard that you probably don't want to have any risks with. Story 23. In October 2008, during a global financial crisis, a paper quietly appeared on a cryptography mailing list titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It proposed a currency that required no banks, no governments, and no trust in institutions. The author used the name Satoshi Nakamoto. Over the next 2 years, Satoshi communicated through emails and forum posts, meticulously guiding Bitcoin's early development. Then, in 2011, he vanished, without explanation. His accounts went silent. Emails stopped. He was never heard from again. What makes the mystery profound is not just his disappearance, but what he left behind. Blockchain analysis suggests Satoshi mined over 1 million Bitcoin in the early days, worth tens of billions of dollars today. None of it has ever moved. Investigators have proposed countless suspects: cryptographers, programmers, even groups of developers. Linguistic analysis has failed. Time zone clues conflict. Writing style comparisons contradict each other. Some believe Satoshi is dead. Others believe revealing himself would endanger Bitcoin's neutrality or his life. If Satoshi were to return today, markets could collapse. Governments might intervene. Entire ideologies could unravel. Instead, the creator of one of the most influential technologies in history remains a ghost, proof that the early internet could still erase a person completely. Story 24. According to early internet folklore, Polybius was an arcade game that appeared briefly in Portland, Oregon in the early 1980s. Players described intense visuals, flashing lights, and strange psychological effects: nightmares, seizures, memory loss, even addiction. Men in black were allegedly seen collecting data from the machines. The problem? No verified Polybius cabinet has ever been found. The story spread online in the 90s, especially on early forums and Usenet groups. Some believe Polybius was part of a secret government experiment testing psychological manipulation. Others argue it's a collective false memory, amplified by the internet's ability to myth build. Skeptics suggest Polybius is a fusion of real events, such as arcade addiction scares, CIA mind control experiments, and obscure games like Tempest, stitched together into a perfect digital urban legend. Yet what keeps Polybius alive is consistency. Independent accounts share eerily similar detail. The name appeared in early arcade databases with no explanation, and people continue to insist they played it. Polybius sits at the crossroads of nostalgia, paranoia, and early internet storytelling, where fiction and memory blur beyond recovery. Story 25. In the mid-90s, a bizarre website appeared under the title Markovian Parallax Denigrate. It contained thousands of lines of unsettling text, strange images, and references to artificial intelligence, secret societies, and psychological manipulation. At first glance, it seemed like nonsense, but researchers noticed something strange. The text followed statistical language patterns. It wasn't random, it was structured. Some theorized it was generated using Markov chains, primitive AI text generation, long before modern language models. Others believed it was an RARG, a manifesto, or a psychological experiment testing how humans search for meaning. The site referenced shadowy organizations, altered consciousness, and simulated realities, concepts far ahead of mainstream internet culture at the time. No author ever came forward, no explanation was given. Was it art? Early AI? A lone mind unraveling online? The site eventually disappeared, leaving behind mirrors, fragments, and questions. It remains one of the earliest examples of the internet feeling alive, and possibly watching. Story 26. 8858 is one of those cases where I don't think we'll ever get answers because the context is gone. Usenet was chaotic, raw, and anonymous in a way modern platforms just aren't. This user posted long, structured messages that looked encrypted. Not spam, not crap posting. People who understand cryptography have tried to crack them for decades, and nothing fully works. Some posts seemed to reference locations. Others hinted at events. A few were oddly poetic, like someone trying to say something important without being understood by everyone. Then the account stopped posting. That's it. The fact that nobody ever admitted to being A800 makes it more interesting. Hoaxers usually want credit eventually. Artists usually explain themselves later. Whoever this was didn't. It feels like someone speaking into the void, assuming the right person would understand, and maybe someone did. Story 27. This is the one I hesitate to even talk about because it gets dark fast. The Lake City Quiet Pills posts didn't look scary at first. They were just weird, nightly off, strange phrasing, references to jobs, and confirmations. Brask. Then people started lining up timestamps with real-world deaths. Now, correlation doesn't equal causation. Most likely explanation? an elaborate hoax or edgy roleplay that spiraled out of control. But there were moments where the timing was uncomfortable. What makes it stick is how plausible the communication method would be. Forums as dead drops, public posts with coded meaning. Everyone sees it, but only the intended person understands it. Eventually, the posts stopped. No confession, no explanation. Nothing definitive proving it was real, but nothing cleanly debunking it either. That gray area is what keeps people coming back. Story 28. John Titor is internet mythology done perfectly. He shows up, makes wild claims, backs them up with technical detail, answers questions patiently, and leaves. Most of his predictions were wrong.
That's true, but some were weirdly close, especially given the time period.
He talked about political polarization, civil unrest, distrust in institutions, things that didn't feel obvious in 2000. His built-in excuse was timeline divergence, which is either clever storytelling or convenient nonsense, depending on how generous you're feeling. What matters more is how real it felt at the time. Early internet forums weren't saturated with hoaxes yet. People were more trusting. A well-spoken stranger with diagrams and confidence could genuinely shake people. Whether it was fiction, performance art, or an experiment in belief, John Titor showed how easily reality could bend online. Story 29. This one still feels unreal. Someone hijacks a live TV broadcast with a Max Headroom mask, delivers surreal nonsense, and disappears forever. No arrests, no confirmed suspect, despite an FBI investigation. People underestimate how hard this would have been in 1987. You needed technical skill, precise timing, and courage, and yet the hijacker pulled it off twice. It wasn't about money or politics. It was just chaos, performance, mockery. That's what makes it unsettling. Someone proved the system could be broken, laughed at everyone watching, and vanished. Story 30. Toynbee tiles feel like something from a parallel timeline. Cryptic messages embedded directly into roads across cities for decades. The logistics alone are insane. The messages reference resurrection, space travel, and obscure media. It's obsessive, consistent, and deeply personal. Investigators think it was one man, but even that doesn't fully explain how widespread it became or how long it lasted. No manifesto, no final message, just tiles. It's like graffiti for an idea only one person fully understands. Story 31. Driver torso. Yes, Google said it was for testing. No, that doesn't explain everything. Thousands of videos, same format, no description, no context. It ran for years before being noticed. If it was just testing, why public uploads? Why the volume? Why the weird pacing? Even after the explanation, it still feels like we saw something not meant to be seen, like peeking behind the curtain of the internet's infrastructure. Story 32. Geetus. Genesis shouldn't exist. That's the simplest way to put it. There's merch. Stickers. Multiple characters. A whole fantasy setting called the Land of Ta, and yet no show. No book. No comic. Nothing. Someone designed an entire world and then abandoned it completely. How does that happen without any record? It feels like lost media from a universe that almost existed, and then didn't. Story 33. I don't think Mortis.com gets talked about enough, mostly because it existed in that weird mid-90s window where the internet was still small, poorly archived, and kind of lawless. If something disappeared back then, it could vanish completely. Mortis.com was a site that showed up in the late 90s, and from the start it felt wrong. The design was crude, even by early web standards, but the content was the real issue. It contained disturbing images, cryptic text, references to death, surveillance, and what looked like real crime scene material. Not edgy horror, more like something you weren't supposed to stumble onto. People who claim to have visited it say the tone wasn't playful. No creepypasta vibes. No obvious fiction framing. It felt cold and deliberate, like documentation rather than storytelling. Some pages allegedly contained names, coordinates, and references that didn't make sense unless you assumed real-world context. Then the site vanished. No archive captures the full thing. Screenshots are incomplete. Some people insist the worst content was never mirrored. Others think that's convenient myth-making, but what's interesting is that no one has ever convincingly claimed ownership. No, it was just an art project confession. No creator commentary. Nothing. Theories range from shock art to an early ARG that got out of hand to something genuinely illegal that was scrubbed once it got attention. The early internet made that possible. There were no content moderation systems, no instant takedowns. Stuff could exist quietly for months or years. The scariest explanation isn't that Mortis.com was supernatural or conspiratorial, it's that it might have been real, and we only saw fragments before it disappeared for good. Story 34. This one messes with me because it looks harmless on the surface. Just a dream survey. Answer some questions. Share recurring symbols. Right? The Happy Valley Dream Survey appeared online in the early 2000s and asked users to submit detailed descriptions of their dreams. What made it weird was the specificity. It wasn't just what did you dream about, it asked about locations, figures, symbols, and emotional reactions in a way that felt uncomfortably precise. People started noticing overlap. Strangers reported eerily similar dream imagery. Same places, same beings. At first, everyone assumed suggestion bias, the survey prompts influencing answers. But even accounting for that, the consistency was strange. Then there were the follow-up emails. Some users claimed they received questions that referenced dreams they hadn't fully described. Others said the tone shifted, becoming more personal, almost intrusive. A few reported being asked to participate further, privately. Eventually, the site went offline. No final explanation, no published study, no academic credit. Just gone. Was it a legit psychological experiment that ended quietly? Possibly. Was it data collection for something else? Maybe. Or was it simply an early internet experiment in shared myth-building, where people unknowingly influenced each other into constructing a collective narrative? The unsettling part is that no institution ever claimed responsibility. No researcher took credit. For something that gathered that much data, the silence is strange. It leaves you wondering whether the goal was the dreams themselves, or the people having them. Story 35. This one crosses from internet mystery into something much heavier, but it's impossible to ignore how the early web became part of it. Antoinette Cayetioto disappeared in 1986. Years later, in the 1990s, as online forums and missing person communities began forming, strange things started happening. People claimed to see posts, messages, and alleged sightings tied to her case appearing online. The most disturbing element is the phone call. A call was received by police in which a young girl whispered, "I'm Antoinette, I'm in trouble." It was traced, but nothing came of it. That alone would be haunting enough. But in early internet forums, users began reporting anonymous messages that referenced details of the case that weren't widely public. Some claimed the posts appeared briefly and were deleted. Others said they were contacted privately after discussing the case. Now, to be clear, none of this has been definitively verified. Early forums were chaotic. Logs were unreliable. Hoaxes were common. But the sheer number of independent reports is what keeps this from fully dying. Was it cruel trolling? Someone exploiting a tragedy for attention? Or was someone connected to the case lurking in online spaces, watching how the story evolved? The early internet gave people a new way to insert themselves into real-world mysteries anonymously. That alone changed how disappearances were discussed forever. What's unresolved isn't just what happened to Antoinette. It's whether the internet briefly became a window into something real and then closed again.